Well, I feel like we needed the party hats and the kazoos, but at least you brought a glass of wine because we've got.
I did, although it's empty.
Chicago Bears schedule. The curtain raises on the Matt Eberrflus era. Away we go into 2022. We have opponents, which we've had forever, but now they're matched up with dates. They're matched up with times. They're matched up with days of the week, and we got a schedule. We got a lot to break down, don't we?
I brought my calendar so I can write down every single game, and I get excited for this sort of thing. I'm kind of a school supplies junkie at my heart, and so I like to be able to write it down. And right now, everybody's winning. We'll see how that looks after we assess the opponents and the weeks that they play them. Okay, go. Let's go. September 11th.
First of all, hold on. Yeah. Just so you know, that's Dionne Miller.
Oh,
I'm Dan Wiederer. And now we're going to flash up a little graphic here to show the entire schedule, and then you can get on with your September 11th talk. Here it is.
Okay, yeah. September 11th versus the 49ers. Who San Francisco brings in as their quarterback is still a mystery, right? Yes. So how do we feel about this? Opening against San Francisco at home, I think that's good.
Yeah, it's fine.
It is.
That's still a really good team, right? Like it could be the Trey Lance versus Justin Fields battle, which, by the way, there is a lot of class of 2021 quarterback duels that could materialize as long as everybody stays healthy and retains their starting jobs. And that's the first one, right? Fields versus Trey Lance in week 1. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. But it's week 2 in prime time that I have already circled on my calendar because it is Bears at Packers. Green Bay's opening night. I feel like, Dan, they gave the Bears this primetime game because they weren't sure anyone would want to watch a primetime game later in the season. Is that wrong?
No. Listen, the Bears against the Packers at Lambeau Field in primetime is typically a recipe for disaster. Aaron Rodgers against the Bears on Sunday Night Football, perfect 6-0 in his career. 4 of those games, double-figure victories. I will say this. Rodgers is 12-1 at Lambeau Field against the Bears in games that he's started and finished. I took out the 2013 game in which Shea McClellan broke his collarbone in the first half, and it became a whole different ballgame after that, and Josh McCown led the Bears to an upset. But we know Aaron Rodgers' ownership of the Bears. It looks like it's going to continue. Even though we were talking a year ago, like this could be the last time that the Bears fans have to deal with Aaron Rodgers in their lives. Nope. He's got $200 million that says, let me stick around and torture you for 2, 3, maybe 4 more years.
I would do it for less money, but correct. Yes. He is still around and he does still own the Bears. So then after they lose at Green Bay on September 18th.
Before you move on really quick, interesting footnote from ChicagoBears.com writer Larry Mayer, noting that every single Chicago Bears coach since Abe Gibron in the 70s has beaten the Packers at least once in their first season. So no pressure, Matt Eberrflus. Go for it.
Really?
Interesting,
well,
right?
Quite a stat for our friend Larry. Wow, I'm kind of impressed.
Week 3, you were ready to move on to that and the return of Lovey, right?
I was. Yes, I was actually the emotional return of Lovie Smith. I'm looking at the schedule, so I'm not like, at a weird angle here, but I'm just looking at the schedule. Yeah, the return of Lovie Smith, that will be somewhat emotional. There's nobody left on the team that he coached.
No, and he faced him twice as the coach of the Buccaneers, lost both times. One of those was at Soldier Field many, many years ago. So that bridge has been crossed. But it's always interesting to have Lovey come back. It's interesting for him to be rebooting his career after that stop at Illinois. My alma mater, which is we've talked about previously on the show, hasn't had the success in the football field that they're supposed to have. He put Doug Kramer through all those things that Doug Kramer didn't need to go through as an Illinois football player. And now Lovey takes over the team in the NFL that everyone really basically thinks is the bottom feeder, the 32nd worst team. Well, the worst team, the 32nd best team in the league. And so he's got a lot of work to do with that Texans club.
Okay, so that's a Bears win. So far they're 1-2. We're moving on to the Giants at the Giants, also a bottom feeder. Bears could win that game.
Could. It's in New York. It's on the road. The Giants have rebooted, just like the Bears. They hired Joe Shane, who interviewed for the Bears GM job as their GM. They hired Brian Dable, who interviewed for the Bears head coaching vacancy as their new head coach. So that's a game that'll have some intrigue to it for those reasons. Obviously, the Bears have used the Giants the last 3 years as a get well game, right? I'm sure you remember last year, 29-3 at Soldier Field. Mike Glennon, the Giants had -6 net passing yards in that game. It's been a get well game for the Bears, but I don't know. It feels like the Giants are retooling, and they got a new era started there. It's on the road. It may be a different story, but it's winnable. It's definitely winnable for a Bears team that needs to win a game early.
It's winnable for a Bears team that needs to win, and it's still early enough in the season that everybody's trying to figure out their new leadership, their new, like, how things are going to look, that I think the Bears could do that, especially if they are coming off their first win of the season, which is what I'm kind of thinking the Texans is going to be, that they would feel a little bit of momentum heading into that. I do not see them consequently turning that into another win in Minnesota. I don't think that happens on October 9th.
October 9th in Minnesota. You have to understand what this means to me personally. When I came from Minnesota to come back to Chicago and rejoin the Bears beat, I would tell Rich Campbell, I say, man, we've got to get up to Minnesota in the fall. There's like a lot of fun things to do outside. We got to see some places. The Bears have not played in Minneapolis before Thanksgiving since 2006. That's my entire time on the beat. We were just kids back then.
No way.
Think about this. Every single year, this will be my 10th year on the beat. Every single year in the previous 9 years that we've gone up there, it's been like 35 below. Yeah. It's either late December or early January, and it's been miserable. So I was excited to see this on the calendar. I get to go to Minneapolis. Who knows? Maybe there's a Twins baseball playoff game to be had. Who knows if that's happening? But there's things to do. Probably not. But there are things to do outside in Minneapolis that I've never been able to do outside because I haven't been back there to the place I lived for a couple of years in the fall in the longest time. So that's an exciting footnote that nobody in our audience really cares about, but it means a lot to me.
No, I care about it because every time that I've gone to Minnesota for a Bears game, we have only taken tunnels everywhere because we don't want to go outside. It's so cold. And I can appreciate enjoying the fall in that area of our beautiful country. Then a Thursday night game, which excites me because typically on Sundays I don't get to go to the games, but when it's a weeknight game, I get to be there. And they're going to be hosting the Washington Commanders. Ron Rivera? No. I'm wrong. Is it?
Yeah.
My brain, I can't totally remember. Okay, but a Thursday night game, prime time.
Soldier Field.
I don't know. What do you think about this? I don't know much about where the Commanders are right now.
Listen, you always want to be at home for a short week Thursday night game, and the Bears are at home against Soldier Field. They're also going up against Carson Wentz, and if there's anybody in the league who should understand how to torment Carson Wentz and fluster him a little bit, it's going to be Matt Eberrflus and defensive coordinator Alan Williams, who spent every day with him last year in Indianapolis. And so that game certainly sets up as one that is there for the taking. I will say this, Carson Wentz 3-0 in his career as a starter against the Bears. Here's another interesting trivia footnote. You didn't think you were going to get this many from me tonight. The Bears, since winning Super Bowl 20 after the 1985 season, are 1-8 at Soldier Field against the Redskins, now the Commanders. That is a unbelievable statistic that they've had that much difficulty beating that franchise for the last 35, 40 years.
Okay, well, in their favor, maybe like the behind-the-scenes shambles that the Washington Commanders have been in for the last couple of seasons, perhaps that will bring something. Who knows? But an Amazon Prime game, I'm going probably a loss. But they're at home. Well,
because they're on Amazon Prime, you're just throwing L on that, stamping it. Nobody's going to get it.
L.
All right.
But they go from one primetime game to another. I'm not sure how I feel about that. October 24th at the Patriots on Monday night.
Think about this. Again, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. It's another one of these class of 21 quarterback
battles. Fun matchup, Dan.
Those two, yes, I know, Dionne. Those guys met for the College Football National Championship game a couple of years ago. You, as an Ohio State fan, obviously know how that turned out. Yep. Alabama and Mac Jones rolled. Obviously, the Bears last year had a chance to pick Mac Jones when they traded up from 20 to 11. They chose Justin Fields instead. The Patriots sat where they were in the mid-teens of that draft, took Mac Jones. Now those guys are going to be compared forevermore, right? Because that's there, that's hanging out there. So that game, it has plenty of appeal there. Give you another one. Bears have not beaten the New England Patriots since 2000. That time, Dick Duran was the Bears coach. Shane Matthews was the starting quarterback, and a guy named Tom Brady, a guy who's just about your age, was a obscure, unknown rookie backup for the New England Patriots. Since then, Brady took the wheel 5 times against the Bears, beat them all 5 times by an average score of 35-21. But it's a new era here.
Is that breaking news? Like, I knew that. I mean,
still, it's been 20 plus years since the Bears have beaten that franchise, and so they got a chance now. I actually have a dilemma that maybe you can help me solve here on the program.
Okay.
My brother lives out in the Boston area, His girlfriend is a diehard New England Patriots fan. Denise. Hi, Denise. Denise is a loyal watcher of the show. We've mentioned her before.
Hi, Denise.
I was going to take Ryan to see that game at Gillette Stadium. And we're thinking this is a great opportunity. My brother is going to go to the game with them and take him. Well, Dionne, it's a Monday night game. So that means that my son would have to miss Monday and Tuesday of that school week in order to attend that game. I've got a lot of people saying, so what? Take the kid to the game.
I'm in that school of thought, especially after a pandemic when we missed so much school. And what grade is he in? I mean, what do you remember from second? He'll be in fourth grade?
My brother's exact words were, I promise you those will not be the two most significant days of fourth grade.
Agreed. His life and career will not be made or broken by missing a Monday to a Tuesday. In fact, you will make a core memory with your son that can never be taken away. And that is priceless. I say do it. Take him out of school. Shoot, give him the whole week to recover. Who cares?
We solved the problem just that easily. We'll have to tell the principal at the school that you signed off on this. We'll have to tell the superintendent that you signed off on this.
Can your brother handle cash too?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they'll just take the kids on and they'll rock and roll. So look, there it is. The Bears could go up to New England on Monday Night Football in Foxborough and get a W, but maybe not.
And if our boys are there to witness it, all the better. Okay, so then another road game, they are not going to win.
Jerry World.
At Dallas on October 30th. I don't think they win that game.
Jerry World. That team's got too much offensive firepower. Yeah. I don't know how the Bears are going to stop that. Obviously, I think you need your rookies, right? Mm-hmm. Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker to be ready to cover guys like CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz and Michael Gallup and all the other weapons that Dak Prescott has to work with. That's a tough one. That's part of a stretch there, Deanne. If you've been paying attention, that's 4 road games in the span of 5 games. That's not an easy October. That's 28 days where they play 4 road games. 4 road games in the month of October. That's truly going to test Matt Eberrflus's ability to really steady things.
No doubt about that. And then they had after that November 6th against the Dolphins, which I'm not sure. The Dolphins are a tweener. Feel like a tweener team to me. Like they're kind of like not
new
terrible,
coach,
but not great. They're like in the midst of coming back. But after that, you have a get well stretch before you host the Packers, right? Like you have the Lions, which the Lions have gotten better, but the Bears have a good record against the Lions. Like they've gotten a lot better.
There's a lot of buzz in Detroit about that team being able to win 9+ games and be around into late December as a playoff contender.
Let's not lose our heads. 9 games.
Listen, remember this moment when we're talking about this around Thanksgiving time, like, holy cow, the Lions are really rocking and rolling here. I'm hearing things from people I trust up there that really forecast a turnaround that I don't think the rest of the league is prepared for just the reasons that you mentioned. My heavens, the Lions. Be careful. They still have Jared Goff as their quarterback. They need to address that. A lot of young talent. Remember, they got 2 premium talents in the first round of the draft just last month with Aiden Hutchinson and Jamison Williams. Those guys are going to be part of their core. So there's something there. And then the Bears go to play the Falcons in Atlanta.
The Falcons, and they are in Atlanta and then at the Jets. I think those are winnable games. Or am I way off base there? Because I know like the Jets have improved through the draft, but those are a lot of young guys. I still feel like the Bears could win at the Jets. They could get well in this stretch, no?
This is the conversation that Colleen and Kane and I were having earlier today, because it's like you look at this and you go, winnable, winnable, winnable. Right. Part of your brain is programmed to look at these games through the roster that we've been used to seeing for the last 3 or 4 years. You have to remember how much the Bears have gutted this. I said, Colleen, listen, like they don't have Allen Robinson anymore. They don't have Khalil Mack anymore. They don't have Akeem Hicks anymore. They don't have Eddie Goldman anymore. All these guys that were sort of in our brain are like part of this Bears team that can compete against other teams. You say, well, wait a second, like that's not the team they're going to battle with. And so we got to keep those in mind. Maybe they can split those 2. If they win them both, that's 2 road victories in a row. That would be really pretty impressive. I just don't know if I can count on this group yet to get there. And then you move on to week 13, and guess what? Who's that?
Packers at home when Aaron Rodgers Field. So Dan, by my math, I'm at like 3 wins by week 12. That's not good.
It's not pretty.
We knew that, but that's the like Dionne Downer side of everything. I mean, the optimistic side, the like glass half full and overflowing would be more like 5, which is still not great, but better than 3. Because I don't think they beat the Packers at home. They have such a late bye week. Did you know?
Oh, it's ridiculous. That's murder for everyone. That's murder for players. It's murder for coaches. It's murder for easily fatigued beat writers who have to cover the team on a daily basis.
No, so true. But that is really late, Dan.
It's in December. Bye weeks aren't supposed to be in December.
We
That's really
had a
late.
bye week in December in a dozen years. Like I don't remember that. Most of them are late October, early November, right?
I will be planning all the holiday festivities for that weekend because that's when we get it. Yeah, that's super late. That's beyond late, and I don't think anybody at House is going to be too thrilled with that. But they're gearing up for the stretch run to make a push at the playoffs after that, right?
Sure, what you said. After that, they do have 3 of their last 4 at home, which is going to be miserable and so cold, but maybe in their favor. Eagles at home on the 18th.
Yep.
The Bills
Josh Allen
on Christmas Eve. Josh Allen. That's a loss.
That game may be not very well attended because it's on Christmas Eve and the Bears may be, as you mentioned, a 3 or 4 win team and the Bills may be 14-point favorites coming in here.
Well, you may go because Josh Allen is your favorite player. Who knows? January 1st at the Lions, New Year's Day, which we don't know.
Party hat kazoos. Happy New Year.
I know. Happy New
2023.
Year. Happy New Year. And then as per usual, they finish the season against the Vikings at home.
No, per usual, they finish the season against the Vikings, but it's never at home.
Never at home.
First time that the Vikings people have to come here, as we talked about previously. So that's very, very interesting way to finish. I have this team at 6-11. Looking at this thing off the surface,
that's really optimistic.
I reserve the right to change later. I mean, look, like you can find reasons to be optimistic within here and pockets, as you mentioned. I mean, you called out some winnable games in there. It's just again about balancing it with that like understanding of what this roster looks like and how many guys would really need to play to their top level to do something. And so that's going to be. Am I
being really negative, Dan, that I just went back through and I was like 3? I count 3 wins that I think right now, the way the roster is currently constructed. Now, I love them to change that. Yes. 6 sounds good to me. 6 sounds good to me.
I think 5 or 6 is what we're looking at with this team. All right, so here's a couple nuggets. 7 of the 17 games will be against teams that played in the playoffs last season.
Correct.
12 will be against opponents that had better records than the Bears last season. Right? That's fairly interesting. I'll tell you this. Earlier this week, I put in some last-minute requests. I want to just keep score on this. This was for the NFL schedule makers. This was for my own personal let's make the 2022 season fun. I asked them to bring Lovie Smith to Soldier Field for the opener. They didn't do that, but they got him in week 3, so it's early, right? And so we got that. I asked them to keep Aaron Rodgers away until at least mid-October because you thought Matt Eberrflus needed to get his defensive system up and running before taking that challenge. They said, sorry, Matt, week 2, Aaron Rodgers, Sunday Night Football at their place. Sorry. Welcome to the rivalry. Deal with that. Right. I asked them to keep the Bears off Thanksgiving Day, which, as you know, in recent years has been a problem. I tweeted earlier today that for NFL writers, the schedule release day is all about who in your family you are going to disappoint to extreme levels based on your whereabouts for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Well, guess what? I'll be home for Thanksgiving. I can run a turkey trot. I can eat turkey. I can watch football Thanksgiving Day with the family. Thank you, NFL
schedule home on Christmas Day because Christmas Eve is also home.
Right, which is a nice one. So that's another one. I asked them to schedule the Bears New York trips, two New York trips this year to play the Giants and the Jets on back-to-back Sundays. That was done in 2006 where the Bears played the Giants and the Jets in New York on back-to-back weeks. They didn't give us that. It's week 4 and week 12 in New York. I was hoping they would, like Matt Eberrflus would see that and say, hey, let's just stay in New York and practice there all week. We'll have a big team bonding experience. They didn't grant that one. Too bad. I asked for Justin Fields versus Mac Jones later in the season. I'll give them credit. They got us late enough in the season, right? We're
24th is good. October 24th is good.
So it is still, it is still in October, but at least that gives both of those guys a chance to get their footing under them. And then the last one was send the Bears to Minneapolis before Halloween. Victory!
And what happened for you, Dan?
Do it. It's like they were listening to me.
I appreciate it so much. I'm very excited for you. I don't know how I feel about 3 primetime games for our Bears.
I mean, that's less than the norm. I feel like in most years,
less than the norm?
It's 4 or 5 in most years because this is still Chicago and it's still the Bears and people watching them on primetime. I saw early today when the Bears-Packers Sunday Night Football matchup was like the first one to pop in the leagues.
Yeah.
People are like, no, dear God, no. Stop putting that embarrassment on national television for the rest of the country to watch. So I think there are Bears fans that are a little skittish now about these primetime games and what it subjects them to, particularly in that rivalry. And as we've talked about the history of that. So the 3 primetimes they're not that daunting though. You know, you have the Packers, but then it's the Commanders, and then
it's Washington and New England. Yeah. It is interesting that they'll go 3 straight Sundays without being, or is it 2 or 3 Sundays without playing on Sunday?
Yeah. I mean, it's a long stretch. And also
it's a long stretch.
After Thanksgiving weekend, because of the late bye and the scheduling quirks, they only have 1 road trip after Thanksgiving weekend. In the final 6 games, final 6 weeks, there's a bye in there, but that's a wild stretch there, which is not
only one indoor game. 1 indoor game in December.
The Lions. Well, it's in January.
Yeah, from October 30th until January 1, they only have 1 indoor game.
October 30th, though, is at Jerry World. Fun indoor stadium.
So
fun indoor stadium. George McCaskey asked a bunch of us reporters at the owners' meetings how we would rate the food at Soldier Field. He legitimately asked this question.
What did you say?
Said, not so good, George.
Thank you.
This is the press box food that he was asking about. He said, really? Like, who has it good? And we're like, they were serving like filet tacos at SoFi Stadium at the Rams game last year. Jerry World, the reason I bring that up is because Jerry World puts out quite a spread for the entire evening, and you can eat pretty well there. And that's going to be an exciting trip back. I think we were last there in 2016 and had quite the feast up there.
I hate to say this out loud. They don't mess at Lambeau either.
No, not at all.
It is top notch.
It's purely legit. And the Bears are probably bottom 4 in the league. I think you'd probably agree with that.
Easily.
Yeah.
It's like just shy of prepackaged meals. Like it's really bad.
Yeah. So that's something they got to work on, and maybe they can explore.
I can't believe he asked that. What a great question, George.
It's a great question, and I don't think he appreciated the answer, but he probably needs to appreciate the answer because you're thinking about building a stadium in Arlington Heights. Let's get this right.
Let's get it right. Is there something I can fill out, like a survey I can send them that says, yes,
I'll make you one. I'll draw one up tonight and put it in your inbox, and you can send it up the chain.
Okay, so we'll remember this now. It's May. You say 6 wins. I say 3. We'll probably meet somewhere in the middle. Yeah?
Probably.
Yeah, you're right.